Generator burnout, an oxymoron or a hard-earned lesson. Generator burnout. The phrase itself sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? You may already know that the generator has consistent and sustainable access to sacral energy. So how can a generator possibly burn out? Well, when I first dove into human design, I was neck deep in what I now understand as a classic case of burnout. For 4 long years, I had been grappling with a general anxiety diagnosis while trying to navigate my career through a haze of constant anxiety. I explored countless ways to alleviate the stress, unearthing a lot about my personal circumstances along the way. This exploration eventually led me to quantum human design. It immediately captivated me. My only previous knowledge of such systems came from astrology, where I barely knew my sun sign. This new world opened up before me just as my mental health hit an all-time low. One winter morning, I woke up knowing deep in my bones that I had nothing left to give. I took 3 weeks off to figure things out. And then, halfway through, the world shut down with the pandemic. Part of me was in shock, but another part felt a profound relief at the unexpected gift of more time. But those 6 months weren't enough. So I decided to take another year. This unplanned sabbatical meant no income. My savings were minimal, but thankfully I had other avenues to support myself, even if it meant a tight squeeze financially. The thought of being broke used to terrify me, but I had reached a point where I was willing to figure it out just to avoid returning to that job. At 31, I had never expected to be in this situation. I initially believed the job was the entire problem. I had worked tirelessly to be a great teacher, yet constantly felt like I was falling short. I bent over backwards, following every piece of advice, only for it to rarely work out. Life felt like it was kicking me when I was already down. My first plan was to quit and find something else. Anything had to be better, right? I started building a gel nail business on the side, something that I had been trained in and passionate about for years. And to bridge the income gap, I also took on some tutoring. But through this experience, a crucial realization dawned on me. While it was a nice break from the usual stress, the truth was I was still stressed out. Through my experience, I came to learn that no matter the job, I would likely encounter stressful situations that trigger my anxiety. I needed to get better at handling my anxiety to find much less resistance in my life. I had sacrificed so much during this time, pouring endless, often sporadic hours into building my new venture. I made myself incredibly flexible, working every day without a full day off, terrified of losing clients to competitors. I needed the money, but I also needed to build my clientele and reputation so I could eventually control my schedule. Slowly, even the joy of doing gel nails faded. I felt I had no free time, and my income was still lower than I wanted, adding significant financial stress. I simply didn't have the energy to grow this business nor the stamina to keep sacrificing my time to make it sustainable. I was stuck, and that's when I realized this generator burnout thing was very, very real. As I faced this deep exhaustion, my search for answers led me even deeper into quantum human design. It held some answers, just not all of them immediately. I saw it as a blueprint for rediscovering myself, a compass pointing me in the right direction. What I hadn't grasped then was the depth of my conditioning and how drastically my behavior deviated from what I thought my design meant. Things weren't adding up. My primary confusion? I am a generator who is burned out. How is that even possible? I was supposed to have consistent access to sustainable sacral energy, but I barely had energy to do basic things. I had no time for my hobbies because I was too exhausted at the end of every day. All I had the mind for was mindless scrolling and binge-watching TV shows. How does one truly live by their design in today's society with all its limitations? It felt like too much was stacked against me. My faith in human design was wavering, and frankly, my faith in everything else was too. With so many questions swirling in my mind, doubt, confusion, I knew I just had to start somewhere. Human design might not be the complete answer, but I had to give it a shot to know for sure. Since I was still confused about how to follow my yes, I decided to get comfortable saying no and setting better boundaries. This helped immensely. I got so much better at saying no, and eventually I started having more energy to actually say yes. At first, I was also super confused about waiting to respond. It took me a while to really understand what that meant. Respond to what exactly? What does that even mean? I came to learn that I can respond to so many things, but it usually comes in the form of inspiration that also makes me feel excited and expansive. That inspiration can be triggered by anything you see, hear, or feel. It could be that I'm having a conversation when something is said that gives me an idea or sparks excitement in me. That gut feeling, that from your sacral center. I also found clarification when it comes to sacral energy. Yes, we do have access to consistent, sustainable sacral energy only when responding correctly. And generators can absolutely burn out if they're spinning their wheels in the mud and getting nowhere. My role as a teacher, ironically, provides me with plenty of opportunities to practice listening to my sacral in everyday situations. Making more than 1,000 decisions a day, I used to want to make sure I was doing it all by the book. Kids constantly ask yes and no questions, and depending on the situation, a question might not evoke a strong response because it's not an easy yes or no. These were the most confusing situations, so I learned to wait before giving an answer. Usually, when I'm not sure, it's because I either need more information or it's a no. Any sort of hesitation initially meant no. No became my favorite thing to say at work, and it alleviated so much stress. Every time I went against my better judgment, even if it logically seemed right or I was too easily swayed by another person's opinion, it would eat away at me and cause me so much anxiety. The more I said no, made more space for myself, and the more I slowly began to hear my yes. The more I went with my gut, the more confident I felt with my decisions, and the less worried I was about making the wrong choice. My people-pleasing tendencies were a major contributor to my burnout and frustration. The anxiety I felt for years before my collapse was my body's urgent warning. Something was fundamentally wrong. Something had to change for me to recover and, ultimately, to thrive. One significant misunderstanding I had was believing generators possessed consistent and sustainable access to sacral energy, which had me thinking it was supposed to be unlimited. We are still a human body that requires rest and repair. Our energy is not unlimited, but when we are responding to the correct thing for us and we are not in a state of burnout, then we are able to keep that momentum going for a while. We are not exactly sprinters, but we do endurance well. We are meant to do things that we enjoy or love, which can be frustrating to hear when you feel as though there are too many limitations in life to just do what you love. So why not find ways to make what you don't necessarily enjoy into something a little more enjoyable and therefore less draining? This was my new goal. I decided to focus on trying to find ways to make my job less stressful, to find a path of least resistance. Being burned out meant that I had no energy for even the things that used to light me up. My energy was only meant for things that felt expansive or elicited a clear Instead, I had been squandering my energy by saying yes to everything when my entire being was screaming nah. Following my yes became incredibly difficult when I had no energy to begin with. So I had to embark on a journey to identify what was leaching my energy and begin to fix it. I had to relearn how to follow my yes and rediscover how that truly felt in my body. I say relearn because I believe as children, we do naturally do this. It's just that all that conditioning makes us forget.